Hey guys, it's Libby, and today I'm doing the 52 Nifty Bookish Cues tag, which was originally created by the lads over at Stripped Cover Lit. It's 52 questions, so I think it is intended to be fairly rapid fire. So let's just get started. What book are you reading right now? Okay, Goodreads, my currently reading on Goodreads has 4 books. I Shall Wear Midnight, Henry IV Part 2, La Dame aux Camélias, and A Pair of Blue Eyes, which is an audiobook. What was the last thing you highlighted? I do not highlight in my books. I do tab things for the Bard Book Club, so I think the latest thing I would have tabbed would be something from Shakespeare. Was that? Yeah, okay. The latest sentence that I tagged was, in a deft ventriloquism, he briefly plays Hotspur using Hotspur's voice to thank himself, which is a concept you will recognize from my Henry IV Part 1 Bard Book Club video. What do you plan to read next? Okay, so the next book on my audiobook list is The Private Memoirs and Confessions of a Justified Sinner by James Hogg. Physical book that I want to read next, I think it's time, and I think I'm gonna go for Lady Chatterley's Lover. The next Shakespeare play I'm going to read for the Bard Book Club, just because all of these four plays are... Let's start that sentence over. All of the 4 books I'm currently reading are going to be replaced by a new one. So I Shall Wear Midnight is going to be followed by Lady Chatterley's Lover. Henry IV Part 2 is going to be followed by Henry V. La Dame aux Camélias. Not totally sure what French novel I want to read next. Maybe Manon Lescaut. Maybe La Princesse de Clèves. Feeling like something a little older right now, and then Memoirs of a Justified Sinner is going to be my next audiobook. Okay. One fiction writer, living or dead, with which I would like to have a drink. Obviously William Shakespeare. One nonfiction writer, living or dead, with which I would like to grab a drink. Roxane Gay. One poet, living or dead, with which I would like to grab a drink. Emily Bronte. One booktuber with which I would like to grab a drink. I have grabbed a drink with Katie of Books and Things. It was a non-alcoholic drink. Rachel from Kalinati. Emily Dickinson or Edgar Allan Poe. Emily Dickinson. Hemingway or Fitzgerald. I haven't read any Hemingway, so I guess we're going with Fitzgerald. Jane Austen or Charles Dickens. Jane Austen. Harris or Hitchens. Dawkins. Stephen King or Michael Crichton. I have no opinion. Bret Easton Ellis or Chuck Palahniuk. Chuck Palahniuk. Kurt Vonnegut or John Green. John Green, based solely on their YouTube output. Shakespeare's poems or plays. I mean the plays, guys. Adrian Fort or Dalton Gentry. I have no opinion. Cormac McCarthy or J.K. Rowling. Joanne. Hannibal Lecter or Voldemort. Is this still on like a who would we rather have a drink with concept? Because like they're both pretty bad. Or is it like which is a more interesting character? I don't know. I think I'm thinking too hard and this is supposed to be rapid fire. Voldemort. T.C. Boyle or George Saunders? George Saunders. Good writing or good story? Okay. So if the writing is truly terrible, then it doesn't matter how good the story is. But once you hit a minimum baseline of writing quality, then I would prefer to have a good story. YA or children's lit? This is also an interesting thing. I think, in my humble opinion, the average children's lit is of higher quality than the average YA novel, but I think that YA has a higher ceiling, so the best YA novel is better than the best children's lit. Irony or humor? Ironic humor. Sci-fi or horror? Sci-fi. Can't be doing with horror. Fantasy or non-fiction? These things are very different. Non-fiction? Rather find a new favorite contemporary writer or a new favorite old-time great? I'm not highly picky. I guess contemporary, because they'll be on Twitter. Contemporary, but only if they're on Twitter. None of this Diane Satterfield nonsense. Sonnet or haiku? Okay, this one's easy. Sonnet in English or Italian, haiku in Japanese. They developed to suit these languages, and thus they are best suited for these languages. Sestina or villanelle? Villanelle. I think that since the sestina is so rigid of a form, the skills you need to write a good sestina are different than the skills you need to write a good poem, and I'm here to read a good poem. Spend the evening at a library or bookstore. Well, if I have to spend it not in my house, then I confess I'm probably not going to be coming home with books either way, so I'd rather do it in a bookstore because that is more likely to have a Starbucks attached to it, and I'm mainly here for the chai lattes. You know, my channel, we're going on a tangent. Oh no, we're losing the rapid fire nature. I have intentionally not titled my channel anything to do with books. It's just my name. So at any point, I could totally justifiably turn this into an all chai latte channel where I just review different types of chais all the time, and it would still be relevant to Libby Stevenson. I would need access to a lot more chai lattes if that were to happen. Okay, magazine or Wikipedia article? Wikipedia article. Dictionary or encyclopedia? Can I choose foreign language dictionary? If not, I think I would still go with dictionary as long as I can have some etymologies, because that's still kind of a foreign language encyclopedia, or a foreign language dictionary. The writer I would like to write my biography. Can I have my biography depicted as a documentary rather than a book directed by Peter Greenaway? I would like that. I do or do not highlight in my books. I do not. I do or do not write in my books. I will very occasionally write in my book. Normally I just underline a couple of words and write lol in the margin. Earliest memory of a library. That would be the library in my elementary school, Hunter's Woods. I remember the librarian. I remember sitting on the carpet. I remember, I think this is a slightly later memory because this would have been in 3rd grade, but I had to construct a bibliography if I was going to write an essay about Edvard Munch. Last time you went to a library. Okay, so I don't really use the libraries here in Amsterdam because Amsterdam purports to have a public library, but I assert that it is in fact a private library. You have to pay something like 25 euros a year to have limited access and 45 euros a year to have full access. That is not a public library. That is a private library, which may have some government subsidies. You know, I would be willing to pay up to 20 euros as a one-time fee for library access, or like up to 8 euros a year for library access. But any more than that, like, I'm just gonna save that money and spend it on books. I don't spend that much on books. I probably spend less than 45 euros a year on books that I get to keep. So I have not really used the library here for books. But I did use, oh my god, I'm about to say a bunch of words that will quite possibly be meaningless to most of you. So I listened to a podcast called Hello Internet, which is hosted by CGP Grey and Brady Heron, who runs Numberphile, the YouTube channel. And they made, here, let me grab them. They made what they call hot stoppers, which are these little things that you set in your coffee that you buy from like Starbucks or Bret or something, with the nail and gear, which is the symbol of Hello Internet on them. And then these were specially made. You cannot get them in most stores, obviously, but they leave them secretly in places around the world when they travel, and C.G.P. Grey left these two in a book about beekeeping in the Amsterdam Public Library, and then left a cryptic message on Twitter, which was only footage of him putting these into the book. But since VidCon was going on very close to the Amsterdam Public Library, and I had seen him posting from Central train station earlier that day, and I knew the library was right next to the train station, I was like, you know, I bet I know where that is. So these are hot stoppers from C.G.P. Grey, and I had to go into the library to get them, and the librarian said I was very strange. I ran all the way there. I started pantingly asking for books about bees, Honigbee, and someone said, write it down, because she couldn't understand my Dutch. So I wrote it down, and she was like, go look in the catalog. And I was like, thanks. Maybe somebody else has gotten these before me. That was my last library experience. It had nothing to do with books. It had everything to do with podcasts. Okay, that was an unfortunately long explanation. Oh, it probably wants to know when was the last time I went to the library. That was like a year ago, I think. Have you ever stolen or accidentally stolen books from the library? I don't think so. I think I may have like taken home and then lost some books from my school library, but then they like send you a slip saying you have to pay for the book. So no library has been impoverished by me. I have had my parents pay for the books that I stole. Ballpark, how many books do you own? Just physical? 250 to 350. How many books do you think would make for a reasonable personal library? Are the complete works of Shakespeare, do they count as one book or as 40? So there's Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, etc. How do you feel about the phenomenon? I do not object to people writing these books. I have no interest in reading them myself. Horror trope you would like to see get more love. I do not feel qualified to answer this. Something that gets underutilized in science fiction. I mean, it's not like never utilized, but since I like it, I'd like to see more linguistics. Flash fiction. Form of and format of literature, or it's just a short story dummy. I don't understand this question. Are these meant to be two different propositions and I am supposed to agree with one? Because I agree with both. If you could own one book from all of history, what would it be? Okay, I'm not totally sure what this question is asking, and I think other people have also been confused about that. So if it's asking for one text from all of history, can I pick the alphabetical listing of Aeschylus? Because I would like that, please. If they mean one physical book, then I heard that recently up for auction was the copy of Lady Chatterley's Lover that was owned by the judge who was presiding over the I've completely forgotten the word, not defamation, but like the this book is too dirty to publish lawsuit, and it has the judge's notes. That would be quite an interesting book to own, but I would also take an original first folio. I answered both parts of that question. Okay, audiobooks. The same as reading? I think this question is incredibly dumb, and I think whenever people argue about it, they are in fact agreeing, and they're just using different frames. They're just, the same as reading is being equivocated upon. So obviously there are ways in which audiobooks are the same as reading, and there are ways in which it is different. Everybody agrees with this, and they pretty closely agree on what these things are. So, you know, if you want to frame it in a certain way, you can certainly say it's the same as reading. If you want to frame it in a different way, you can say that it's not. Can we never discuss this again, please? Most literary songwriter of your lifetime. Well, as you guys already know, I have a certain fondness for Rufus Wainwright. I will leave a link, since I couldn't in my last video, my last tag video. I will leave a link to his Oh What a World song, which I think is truly excellent. What writer embarrasses you the most because you haven't read them? I feel like I've read all of, like, the you gots to read them. Turgenev. What writer embarrasses you most because you've read too much of them? K.M. Shea. Let's not talk about it. What is a biography you're looking forward to reading? I own a biography of Thomas Hardy, which I keep forgetting to bring over from my parents' house, so I am unable to read it. Do you have a dream reading cubby? Not particularly. I'm flexible. I mean, I like to read in my bed, so just really what I have is a dream bedroom. Last literary phenomenon that really got your gears grinding. I think it's all good, man. What is the last piece of literature that changed the way you read? I'm sorry if these last questions I have no answer for. I do not think a single piece of literature has ever changed the way I read. I mean, learning different languages has changed the way I read in that I can read additional languages. So the last piece of literature that changed the way I read is an introduction to Old French, because it enabled me to read in Old French. I mean, Shakespeare and Marjorie Garber's Shakespeare After All have changed the way that I read specific Shakespeare plays, because I have more information and more angles to approach them from, but they have not changed the way I read everything. Okay, and final question, what booktuber have you been watching the most recently? So I've actually been sort of exploring some newer booktubers, some like under 100 subscriber type peoples. I'm gonna go over to my YouTube history and to see who I have in fact been watching the most. I think it is Priscilla Reeds. Hi, Priscilla. Instead of coming to the end, I'm going to tag you. Your turn, Priscilla, to do 50 nifty bookish. 52 nifty bookish cues. The reason, if you're from the United States, there's a song which is meant to help kids be able to list all of the states, which is 50 nifty United States. That's the first line. And so saying 50 nifty, it like immediately rolls off the tongue. Saying 52 nifty is a little bit harder for my mouth to do. Although I do not know this song and I cannot sing it. I know a couple of sections of it, but if I am required to list all of the United States in order, I would not do it alphabetically. I would do it starting with Maine in the top right. Yeah. And then I would go down the East Coast, and then I just sort of take it in columns all the way to Hawaii. That wasn't one of the questions, but now you know. Okay. Thanks for watching.